Summertime, and the living is easy. Fish are jumping. What a beautiful day. Oh, the best of summer. Can you imagine what would be your ideal summer's day? With the blue skies and the heat and everything. And then imagine this day was 10 times better than that. Frank sat in his deck chair in the shade of a beautiful acer tree and just enjoyed his garden, waiting for the grandkids to arrive. When he looked up, the beautiful red canopy went out over his head and the sun made it sparkle and glow. Been together quite a while, haven't we now, tree? Wonder when was it? Ooh. Let's see now. Frank was about 15 years of age at the time. He'd just left school and it was time for him to go out into the world and make his way. He was never going to be an accountant or a banker or anything like that, but a builder's labourer? Maybe he could. It just so happened that he had an uncle who was a foreman on a building site, and it was arranged that Frank would go and work with him, stay with his aunt and uncle all week and come home at weekend. It was a really good arrangement and Frank went along with it fine. He arrived at his aunt and uncle's, got his bedroom and his 2 drawers to put his stuff in. Everything was lovely. It came to Monday morning and it was time to set off for work, and his uncle had one of those new Ford Cortinas. It was a bit posh. And there was even plastic on the seats where Frank had to sit down so he didn't mucky it. They went on their journey to work in a very pleasant way. The radio was on and the tunes coming through the air. It's not unusual to be loved by anyone. Yeah, this was going to be a good day. Now then, well, how many houses was he going to build today? Because, they were going to be lucky to have him. By the time he reached the site, things didn't seem quite so clear when he had to exchange his winkle pickers for work boots and cover up his nice new hipsters with a pair of overalls. But, his mates weren't going to see him, so he went into the office with his uncle to find out what his first task of the day was going to be. Coffee. Coffee? Coffee. I want coffee. You know how to make it, don't you? Well, the truth is, Frank didn't know how to make it. His mum had always made it at home. Let's see. There was a big canister in the corner that said coffee on it. Well, that was a good start, wasn't it? It even had instructions on the side, so Frank thought he was on to a winner. Got the mug, got the teaspoon. It said 1 teaspoon of coffee. Doesn't look a right lot. Yeah, but I'm sure his uncle was a strong coffee kind of guy. Yeah. Puts in the water and now we're looking for the milk. There in the fridge, there was a brand new unopened bottle of milk with a nice shiny silver top on it. And next to it was one that had been opened and had a little bit in the bottom. Frank wasn't going to get told off for wasting milk, so he used the one that was open. He wasn't sure what the white floaty bits were, but if he stirred him hard enough, they'd disappear. He went through to the office. There was his uncle with plans laid out upon his desk, with rulers and pens, and a frown of concentration. Frank didn't know his uncle knew words like that, let alone use them to his nephew. He was barred from the office and sent out to work with the chippies and the sparkies and like. Frank did learn some new skills that day. He learned how to test milk, and he learned how many spoons of coffee to put in a pot, and how to brew a decent brew. So that was a good thing. By the end of the day, he came to get into the car to come home with his uncle, and he could see that it had not been good for him. He held onto the steering wheel really tightly. His shoulders hunched up and he had deep frown lines in his head. And there was no radio on the way home. They drove home in silence. They arrived back at home in silence. They got out of the car in silence. He walked up the path in silence, and then they got to a tree. Frank had never seen one of these trees before. It was really pretty with red leaves on it. And his uncle did the strangest thing. He walked up to the tree, got hold of the branch, and the transformation was incredible. His shoulders went back, the lines smoothed out of his face, and there was even the faint look of a smile. Wow, that must be a really magic tree. Nope, just a tree. Into the house they went, and a very pleasant evening was had. Now this routine happened day in, day out. They would go off to work in the morning, fine. They would come home at night time, and his uncle would be tense and tired. Sometimes he'd be angry or frustrated, depending on what had happened during the day. But every day they'd drive home in silence. They would arrive home in silence. They would get out of the car in silence. They would walk up the path in silence, and then transformation would take place. Frank tried time and time again. Is it some sort of medicine tree? Nope, it's just a tree. It's really special, that tree, isn't it? It's got special powers. No, it's just a tree. This arrangement carried on for quite a while, and eventually Frank became very good at what he did. So much so that he managed to get himself a job at another building site and become totally independent and earn enough money to buy a place of his own. It was the last day with his uncle. And as they arrived back home, his uncle did what he always did. Oh, Uncle, you just got to tell me. Come on, for ages now we've been doing this, and you keep saying it's just a tree, but it's not, is it? Well, it is just a tree. But to me, it's my worry tree. You see, things happen during the day. You can't help it. People let you down, people get cross, customers change their minds, people make you really rotten coffee, or they pull a plug and put the whole site into blackness, or they do a wrong mix in the concrete mixer and get the shovel stuck in it. You know, all those kinds of things that happen. And they go round and round and round in my head, but they have no place in the house. And they definitely don't have any place in my head when I'm trying to sleep at night. So, every night when I come home, I hang the worries of the day on my tree. Come to think of it though, you might have something in that magic bit. Because strangely enough, when I come out in the morning to pick them up again, there is never ever as many worries on that tree as there was when I left them the night before. Strange that, isn't it? In fact, now you're setting up on your own, I thought it was about time you had your own tree. And he picked up a pot off the floor and handed it to Frank, with a young stick of a sapling with little red leaves. So there you go. Have your own. Yeah, tree, we've been together a while now, haven't we? Dum. Car door. Okay, here goes. Suddenly, the whirlwind called his granddaughter came running towards him. Grandad! Grandad! You're just going to say something to Simon! all the way here, and then he was sick on my shoes, and we had to stop to get cleaned up, and I wanted some sweets, and my mum said I couldn't have any because it was too expensive. It's just not fair. Frank settled her on the floor, leaned across, and picked up a pot with a skinny stick of a sapling with red leaves, and said, "Have I ever told you the story about the tree? So hush, little baby.